The coaching carousel has concluded. 5 new coaches around the NFL. Gentlemen, it can be tough to know just how good these coaches are, especially new ones coming into the job for the first time. But, we'll go on a limb. We'll go on the edge and pick which ones we think are the most successful new coaching hires. Ian Harditz, why don't you kick us off?
I'm going to go with Matt Rule and Mr. Joe Brady in Carolina. And look, I do not know a bigger Panthers fan than Josh Norris. I know he's excited about this too. And why should he not be? I know Joe Brady's young. He's only 30 years old, but this quote really stuck out to me when he was interviewing and all this. And what he said was, our system is going to be what our players do best. And it was so refreshing to hear in a league where it's always, now my system's the best. We're going to fit the players into my system. Your system should be the players. In Carolina, we'll see about the O-line. The defense needs some work, obviously. But just with McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Ian Thomas, there's a lot of good young talent there. And, we've seen Matt Rule do it at both Temple and Baylor, just kind of being a leader of the program. I think with Brady's, young, interesting mindset, with just building a system around the players, a lot of good things could happen.
So, most successful can be fluid, right? And are you talking more immediate success or long-term success? Because I think that's the biggest difference here, because I think there are a lot of other coaches that have landed in better spots than Matt Rule and Joe Brady here in Carolina. They don't even know who the quarterback's going to be for 2020.
Yeah,
that's
Cam Newton, but
we're not sure about that. I am not certain about that.
Yeah.
So that to me is a major determining factor. But I agree with you that long term, and I think Dave Tepper, the owner, has this vision that he understands process over immediate results. And so if they can build something that sustains, they want some sustained success rather than some immediate Band-Aid pass.
It's a perfect owner-coach marriage. Matt Rule kind of famed for the culture he establishes. He's kind of on the bleeding edge of analytics, which is what the Panthers are now obsessed with. And they made the best coordinator hire on either side of the ball, in my opinion, of any team this offseason. Joe Brady appears to be a special coordinating talent. And, of course, we haven't seen it at the NFL level. But, he talk about if the Panthers do re-sign Cam Newton, talk about someone who I'd be excited to try to see revive Cam Newton. It's Joe Brady. So it was a home run for the Panthers.
If Brady's successful, obviously, he becomes a head coaching candidate at 31 next year. Otherwise, though, even middle-of-the-road success, like the Panthers have cornerstones. 23-year-old McCaffrey, 23-year-old Curtis Samuel, 22-year-old DJ Moore, and a 30-year-old offensive coordinator under a guy basically creating a program, not just a one-and-done year. So it could fail, but I think it's super exciting.
You also had a cornerstone. Luke Kuechly retired very early on.
I also listed Curtis Samuel ahead of DJ Moore.
I loved it.
He's older. He's a little older.
I did find it fascinating that we keep mentioning his age, Joe Brady. He's 30 years old. But then the defense coordinator they hired, Phil Snow, has been coaching for 37 years himself. So, okay, let's move on. We got more coaching hires to talk about. John Daigle, hit us up with one.
The coaching cycle happens normally because a team fails the year prior. But the Cowboys didn't fail. They just underwhelmed. The pieces technically are in place depending on what happens in free agency. But McCarthy's essentially getting the number 3 offensive DVOA, as you mentioned in another video, a plus 113 point differential, assuming we bring back Dak and Cooper, the universal we. And I think McCarthy steps into just a much better position than you can say about Stefanski or Rule and some of these other coordinators.
Ian, as a resident Cowboys fan, what do you think?
I don't know. My problem with taking anything that McCarthy did in Green Bay is that look at his quarterbacks, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, two of the best off-script, screw the play design quarterbacks we've ever seen. And you know what? Dak can do that. The offense is good as it is, so maybe it won't really matter. But I'm just really hesitant in assuming that he's just going to be this upgrade over Jason Garrett. I don't know.
What I'm worried about with McCarthy is the Cowboys, it seemed like what they wanted more than anything was a culture change, really. And Mike McCarthy, final few years in Green Bay, talk about a toxic culture. And Mike McCarthy, not famed for being a rah-rah player-first coach. And I worry this could be a situation that could spiral very quickly, to be honest.
I'm a little nervous as well. To me, this is like the coaching equivalent of a quarterback saying his mechanics have changed in the offseason. Once the pressure and disruption hits him, he's just going to revert back to who he is.
Maybe, but it's not
too
often this offseason already. He's been compared to Jason Garrett, and there's not the same at all. This came from Bob Stern's piece on McCarthy at The Athletic, but in the Jason Garrett coaching era, Jason Garrett went for it on 4th down between the first and third quarter. Throw the fourth quarter out the window because you're forced to go for it on 4th down. The Cowboys went for it in that tenure, the 28th highest rate. McCarthy in that tenure with the Packers went for it at the highest rate in the league. So they become a more aggressive offense, whereas the coaching fallacy is what put the Cowboys behind all those years.
I think the Cowboys were probably the most disappointing team of 2019.
Maybe the past decade, honestly.
I would say the Browns would be second. So that's why I'm going to roll with Kevin Stefanski here. Let me make the case for him. Look, there was so much hype heading into this team in this season. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, and Baker Mayfield. That's the name I want to focus on here, is Baker Mayfield. And I think a lot of the blame for the Browns offense this year was placed on like the Browns offensive line. It was placed on Freddie Kitchens' play calling. And while I'm not here to defend either of those, because both those were bad quite often, when they were right, when they were good, Baker Mayfield still made mistakes. And we know Stefanski's coming from the Vikings, an offense that he was able to boost a bad offensive line, one with questions, and also a quarterback with questions. I mean, despite of how many numbers Kirk Cousins put up year after year, he was able to make him a very consistent player week after week. And I wonder if he is able to do that with this Browns, with this losing franchise, one that can't make any cohesive decisions together. And I wonder now they're kind of aligned for the first time in a long time, Pat.
Well, Stefanski, it's weird. He was a Vikings lifer, so he's been with the Vikings for 12 or 13 years, but he kind of has like the Gary Kubiak sheen to him, because Gary Kubiak was like his number one assistant the past year. But if he's going to run a Gary Kubiak type offense in Cleveland, that would be amazing for Baker Mayfield. That would be really amazing for Baker Mayfield. But we just don't really know anything about Kevin Stefanski. He's called plays for barely one calendar year, and he was under one of the strictest public edicts ever from a coach that we're going to run the football. So it's really hard to know what kind of play caller, what kind of coach Kevin Stefanski is really going to be.
I wonder if we see him blossom even more and like get to know him even more as a head coach, because it seemed like, and this isn't fair, but whenever Mike Zimmer would talk about this offense, he kind of talked about Gary Kubiak and not Kevin Stefanski. But if Stefanski can even pull from that Gary Kubiak tree,
that would be great.
And that running game, we could see Nick Chubb, and I would even throw in Kareem Hunt. I think Kareem Hunt's going to come back to this team as well. And that kind of double-headed backfield, along with, again, Odell and Jarvis Landry and whoever else they have on the offense, they're set up for success once again.
I think even Baker, though, because we don't know much about Stefanski, but he did call plays last year, as you mentioned. And the whole reason for the fourth highest rate in play action for the Vikings was to hide the pressure that Kirk Cousins was facing behind that miserable offensive line. And remember, Baker Mayfield under pressure, the highest rating in the entire nation, all 3 years at Oklahoma, was middle of the road his rookie year, 17th out of 34 qualifiers, 38, and then terrible, 34th out of 37 qualifiers last year. So if they instill more play action for Baker just to give him more room, it could be a great positive.
So that's where I just wish we knew more about Kevin Stefanski, because Gary Kubiak talked about like a play action OG.
Yeah.
Like, if we were get that kind of offense in Cleveland, it could be like an instant turnaround for Baker Mayfield.
I'm just hoping that this year the Browns do not cut their starting left tackle after the preseason in a cost-saving move. Like, come on.
Pat, want to close us out?
I do. So, Josh, the lead, you talked about how difficult this exercise could be. A few years ago, I ranked, I do the coach rankings every offseason. I basically said Doug Peterson was the worst new hire of his offseason. So this is a very inexact
You're
science.
one mistake in your entire career.
Yeah, it really is. That's why it sticks with me, because it's just never made another mistake. To me, this was a very uninspiring crop of hires. Other than Matt Rule, there wasn't really anyone who kind of had like that new, like someone who had been like, built up as like a kind of new candidate for a few years, like the future. Kevin Stefanski kind of, but like I said, he's really only been on the scene for like a year. Then we got a bunch of recycled coaches, and I guess maybe I'll say Ron Rivera. Just talk about someone who needed a culture change. The Washington Redskins, Ron Rivera is maybe the most respected man in the entire NFL, has an intriguing young coordinator in Scott Turner, Mr. Norville's son. Ron Rivera, is a very conservative coach, but he actually is willing to try new things. Last year there was hype they were going to try new things with the defensive front in Carolina. I don't really know if that came to fruition or not. I mean, he was at one point nicknamed Riverboat Ron. So he's a very good stabilizing hire, so maybe the Redskins won't be a laughing stock. Right?
Yeah.
But to me, it just, in general, the fact that I'm talking about Ron Rivera speaks to what was an underwhelming crop of hires.
I mean, I truly think he was hired because when you think of Ron, you think of an identity of a team. Like, you think of culture. And if he does anything, he is going to have this team take his identity in terms of being hard-nosed, almost a general. And like you mentioned, no team needed that more than Washington, who have kind of like fallen into the cycle of doing the same thing every single year and never understanding how to like work like an NFL franchise.
That's why I thought, yes, Rivera uninspiring, but also the culture change for Washington is huge. And it didn't stop there. Just getting Bruce Allen out. Now we bring in Rivera, who can at least build an organization. And they got rid of their trainer of 30-plus years, who, as we know, that Washington training staff has just been the detriment of that team. Terrible. It's like they literally just recycled everyone. everyone. Hired a young Scott Turner.
Yeah. We're not mentioning, though, the defensive coordinator in Jack Del Rio.
That's true. That's true.
And I will throw this out there. Like, the Panthers defense completely declined year after year after Sean McDermott went over and became the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. I'm not sure if Jack Del Rio is the one to fix a Ron Rivera defense.
And we saw Jack Del Rio, his last coordinating stop before he was Raiders head coach was the Broncos, and when he left, their defense immediately got way better in the Super Bowl. So
The good news is, at least even if they're not good, they should enjoy playing for him. I mean, there was not a single Panthers player I think that had a bad thing to say about Ron Rivera when they left. And I will say, having Cam Newton as your quarterback, and we saw the questions everyone was asking year after year after year, he embraced that unorthodox approach. It paid dividends for a large part. So I feel better about Haskins' future because I think Rivera will be willing to build around him.
Totally.
We did not mention Joe Judge, so that means he's going to have the best rookie year out of all of these guys.
Of course, yeah.
There we go.
And by the way, I still have no idea who Zach Taylor is, and he's entering his second year in the NFL.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, for more videos, you can go over and check out Rotoworld.com and NBCSports.com.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.